Welcome to Duly Nerded. I'm Chris.
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to our episode 0, guys. So, how's it feel being on air?
I'm excited, man. It's been a long time coming, but I'm ready for this.
Yeah, what has it been about? We've been working on this for about a year, coming up, building up to fucking one episode.
Well, yeah, I mean, we did talk about it about a year ago. I mean, we haven't really started working on it seriously until honestly maybe like a month ago is when we really started getting serious about it.
It's a little weird to actually finally be sitting down doing it.
Yeah.
After all the prep.
Yeah, well, out of all the procrastinators, I think Matt is the issue with all of this. It's his fault.
Oh,
yeah.
Thanks for throwing me under the bus
immediately.
Blame
Matt. Yep.
All right, so today we have a couple of awesome topics we're going to kind of throw around and kind of get a feel for who we are and what we've come here to do on the show. We're just going to talk about anything that's relevant in pop culture today. It can be science, it can be comics, it can be movies, it can be anything. So welcome to Duly Nerded, and thanks for taking the time to listen to us.
Hell yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Anthony. He's going to bring us into some SpaceX news.
Yeah, so the Dragon capsule is actually now docked at the International Space Station. It was another successful launch from the company, and they landed yet another one of their rockets, which the fascinating thing about this for me really is the fact that, you know, they have this unique vision kind of going forward. Like, it's a very forward-looking view for a space company, which up until now has been dominated by, you know, like Lockheed and Boeing and all the other big aerospace industries.
Yeah.
And they're definitely kind of a, they're definitely a mover and a shaker right now, which I don't think anyone really expected when they first got started. Reusable rockets are interesting because the concept of being able to reuse a rocket, driving down the cost of getting to space, making space more accessible is just something that really speaks to me personally, you know? So it's really cool because now, like, you start reducing the cost of getting to space, and then once you get up there, you can start doing more. And one of the things I like to think about is, like, okay, so now what's the next step? You know, so now we've proven reusable rockets are a thing. So what's the next step?
Well, I mean, you also got to look at NASA's been kind of pigeonholed this entire time.
Exactly.
And, I mean, budget constraints and everything else going on. So it's great to see the private sector really getting in here, and it's not just their government contracting and really starting to make an impact on space. I mean, as kids, we all loved it. We all wanted to go to space.
Exactly.
We all wanted to be astronauts. So it's really awesome that we're
NASA
finally...
was the big thing back in the day.
Exactly. We all grew up during, like, the shuttle era. I mean, you know, it was the thing, everybody wanted to be an astronaut growing up.
And it's so cool to see that finally in our lifetime we may see, you know, a human on Mars. We're finally venturing into that final frontier and everything. We all grew up watching Star Trek and Star Wars.
Exactly.
We're all huge fanboys. And so seeing this actually happening in real life, it's awesome. It makes me so excited.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, not even just SpaceX. I mean, like, SpaceX is the one that's kind of big in the news, like, you know, just right now. But, you know, you've got Blue Origin. They had their successful launch and, you know, recovery as well. And then, you know, on top of that, you also have the United Launch Alliance, you know, another big commercial space program. And then on top of that, you know, you have NASA with their space launch system, you know, trying to get, you know, more probes, satellites, all that kind of stuff out into, you know, deep space, essentially. So it's super fascinating. It's just a really cool thing, especially because now we really are an interstellar species. I mean, we have Voyager 1 that is outside of our solar system, which that's just a crazy thought to me. It blows my mind.
And we've just scratched the surface.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah, it's beyond exciting. I think anyone out there, anyone that has been interested in this since we were kids, I mean, it's really great to see what is being accomplished in our lifetime. I mean, you look at technological advancements, and, you know, back in the 1900s, you had things like flight and really starting to understand how to fly just on Earth, and then moving into things like technology with computers and televisions. But in the last 20 years, we've seen some of the most tremendous explosions of technology ever. I mean, just from being a kid, I didn't have my first cell phone until I was almost out of high school, and even then it was a shitty-ass little flip phone, you know? And now, I mean, you see kids in elementary school with iPhones, and you literally have the entire knowledge of the world in your hand. And, I mean, our phones are more powerful than the computers that we used to get the first ship into space.
Exactly, and that's that's another thing that I've always thought was kind of interesting, and I think, honestly, Neil deGrasse Tyson does the best job of explaining this, is, you know, space kind of drives, well, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say drives, but it's a strong contributor to, you know, technology here on Earth. I mean, like, stuff that was developed for NASA during the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo missions is really what kind of set the stage for computing in the 70s. Well, and then from there it just starts ballooning out. I mean, stuff that you have to engineer for these space missions because you have health and safety concerns. You have just the engineering challenges of being away from the Earth.
Now, we can't forget to make a shout out to Star Trek. I mean,
right.
We all grew up watching Star Trek, and now our generation is making... Shut up, Matt. And our generation is... we're making the things that we saw in Star Trek that people never thought would be a reality, and now they're consumer products.
Actually, do you see... I think it was on Reddit or something like that. I saw a post a while ago where they ran down from... I think it was Star Trek the original series and Star Trek the Next Generation, and they kind of ran through a whole bunch of the really big technology items that were super futuristic for those shows. So one of them was the personal communicator device. Now, I mean, we've already done that with cell phones and all that kind of stuff. And there was an image of Jean-Luc Picard with his little tablet that helped him control the Enterprise. And now tablets are a real thing, and if you have the right app, you can control whatever you want. I mean, shoot, I can
smart house. What?
Exactly. So yeah, it's super fascinating, and that's actually one of the. I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the things I had kind of been thinking about a while ago. Was honestly, sci-fi kind of drives science to a certain extent.
Well, it does. One thing I always go back to is always 2001: A Space Odyssey. You look at HAL. Things like that, and we're finally starting to kind of get to sort of an AI stage. You have things like Siri or Cortana, where obviously they're not hostile or thinking, but
well, and I think it's also
computers that can respond to humans.
Yeah, it's really important to acknowledge that coming from having a science background in school as well as going back for a degree in film and liberal arts, it's a lot of people separate the two out. But I mean, creativity is essential to science. You have to have these big ideas and you push the boundaries, and having those big ideas is really what drives us.
And it's also
without imagination,
right? And it's part of that is it's not just the the creativity and all that go hand in hand, but it's like you said, we grew up watching Star Wars and Star Trek and all that kind of stuff, and then now here we are, engineering and all that, so it's these shows that were done by film or whatever that inspired us as kids. I mean, that's why I got into engineering in the first place. I mean, it was one of those things that I was I want to be up there. I want to be doing that. How do I make this real? So I mean, it's not even just the first order effect of the creativity and problem solving, but it's also just kind of the lasting impact on the generations that come next.
Well, I mean, even look back to when we were kids. I mean, I can't imagine. I would say most of us, of the three of us, I'm going to exclude Matt on this because I have no fucking clue. But I mean, model rockets. I made so many model rockets launching those fuckers. I mean, you start out with the little C engines, and then you get those giant fucking engines that you throw in there. We lost so many model rockets because we just putting engines in that were way too big and launched them.
Model rockets in elementary school.
Yeah. Well, I did the model rocket. I did the model rocket thing as well, and it was so much fun because so my dad was big into all that as well, which I think is part of the reason I came out as nerdy as I did. But no, so my dad was big in all that, so he'd always take us out to the park and we would launch them off and everything. And I remember one of the coolest moments ever is again so I was actually in Boy Scouts. And they had a merit badge called Space Exploration. And part of the merit badge was you fire a model rocket that you have to build and design yourself. So we essentially modeled ours off of the SR-71. So, it had the long neck, the sloping wings, all that kind of stuff. And we stuffed it with 13 of the D-cell rocket engines. We never saw that bitch again.
Oh my God. Well, and now that I'm living in the past and reliving the experience of model rockets, how... With the advancement of 3D printing, can we please talk about how this is not making some bomb-ass model rockets? I mean,
right?
We had shitty cardboard tubes and fucking plastic caps with rubber bands connecting the parachute that would pop out with the engine when the engine went off.
We're getting there. The dream is real.
The dream is how do we not have just endless amounts of 3D printing models for model rockets that we could shoot some badass shit into the sky?
Right. Well, and actually, So it's interesting you bring that up because I was actually just watching Mythbusters the other day because I was having some nostalgia, again, like I tend to do. And I was watching Mythbusters, and it was the one where they put the rockets on top of the Chevy.
Yes.
And I'm like, and it was interesting because they spent like quite a bit of time focusing on like, you know, building the actual mounts for the rockets that they were attaching and everything. And I had that thought. I was like, you know, nowadays, I mean, you can 3D print with almost anything. Like, I mean, it would have been so easy to 3D print, like, you know, the rocket frame. And, you know, like, 3D printing, I really feel is going to be a super important, like, technology going forward. Like, I feel like there's a lot of potential there. Like, there's so much you can do with it.
We even need to look at the fact that there's a ton of young innovators that are, like, have these ideas that are actually able... Whereas, for us, we would have to go to a machine shop and actually build stuff that way and using heavy metals and stuff. Now kids can, like... They can go into something like AutoCAD or SolidWorks, and they can have, you know, model something out. They can print it and actually test out these models. That, I mean, the opportunities that are there with 3D printing and just computing in general is so cool. I mean, I had Legos and I built a ton of shit out of Legos, but man, 3D printing is fucking cool.
It really is, and that's the thing. Like, I love the ability, like the just the 3D printing for its ability to provide like rapid prototyping is awesome because it's one of those things you can be like, oh, well, I have this idea. Let me just, you know, write something up, print out a model, like have all my electronics in place, and let's go see if this works. And it was interesting because, you know, I was talking to my dad the other day, and, you know, I was talking about how, like, you know, I've been doing a lot of like simulation work with like MATLAB, and amazing tool. But he was always like, you know, back in his day when he was doing like his like, you know, physics modeling and simulation, he was like, oh, yeah, no, I had to, like, write it out in C and then, like, you know, send it out to, like, the Cray supercomputer that was on campus and then just wait forever until, you know, it was finished compiling and running and all that. And then, you know, because, like, my dad was, like, old-school computing, so he was always like, you know, yeah, we did C. You know, fortunately, I didn't have to do punch cards too much, but, you know, it was, like, one of those things. It's like things keep getting better and easier. And I'm just super excited to see, like, what comes next.
Oh, I mean, you see the innovation that came out of...
Technology is always moving forward.
It is, and it's
Every
great.
day.
You see the innovation from, you know, people from our parents' generations and our grandparents' generations, and they did some amazing stuff with nothing. I mean, it's crazy to think that...
Sticks and stones as far as this generation is concerned.
Yeah, and it's amazing to think that, you know, they are the ones that got us to this point now, and we have the ability to create at a whim. I mean, even for myself, when going through film school and learning how to actually cut film and going through the old processes and understanding that, now you can literally take an iPhone and some, you know, have a simple audio recording device hooked into a boom mic. You can make an entire feature film using a fucking phone that's better quality than a lot of stuff from back in the day.
Sidetrack on that. So kind of changing the topic a little bit. Have you seen Hardcore Henry?
No.
I've seen the previews. I haven't actually checked out.
Oh my god! Like, that's, first of all, the movie itself. I mean, it's not gonna win any like filmmaking awards or anything like that. But just as a concept, you know, the first person, like, you know, mini portable camera, like, that's so freaking cool, man. Like,
what's really awesome is, I mean, obviously we all saw Doom back in the day, and they had the small part where it was first person and really kind of tried to psych you out. Now, obviously, I'm not saying Doom was a great film.
I was gonna say, you talk about the one with like the Rock, and
exactly.
Crawler, but
before things like Blair Witch Project, which
I love
was commercially successful, despite what you may or may not think about it.
Agreed. Yeah, and you know, as much as I love The Rock, he does some great. He's just
and honestly,
I love him.
Gonna lie, like,
it's so bad.
Doom was a guilty pleasure for me. I love watching that movie.
Yeah, 100%. But
it was a terrible
it's
movie,
important
but it's fun.
and it's important to realize, like, you look at stuff like this, and you look at something like Hardcore Henry, but it's also important. You look at Cranked. Cranked was, I mean, it was crazy, and it was ridiculous in every way. But you look at it, they were using prosumer and consumer cameras to shoot that entire thing, and I mean, again, we're going back to the technology that it's so much more accessible that it's not just about having the money to do something; it's getting out there and just doing it.
Exactly. Well, and like that's the thing. Like I feel, and it's interesting because, you know, one of the things that I really feel is important, especially like if you have like a passion or something, really the best thing you can do is just to get out and do it. And you know, the more you do it, the better you get at it. All that kind of stuff. And yeah, like, you know, just getting out and doing it. And there's so many ways that make that really easy to do nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, the thing you run into is, you know, now you've got, like, Facebook and all these other, like, you know, attention grabbers that are just, like, you know, may, like, prevent you from actually, like, you know, going out and just doing stuff.
That's true, but and this is where we get into the generation talk of, oh my God, you kids don't blah blah blah.
It's a little political,
but you know, I mean, overall, like, I mean, Facebook's great. You keep in contact with old friends and all that, but you know, it's amazing. We have so many things at our disposal. We literally have the knowledge of the entire world available to us 24/7 in our pocket. So I mean, it's created almost an apathy to knowledge, but at the same time, I hate saying that because there are a ton of innovators out there, and there's people doing amazing things, whether it's apps or moving into things like SpaceX. It's amazing what we can do.
I wouldn't call it apathy so much as taking it for granted.
That's
like,
true.
It's become a privilege now, not a pleasure, I don't know.
Yeah, and I get that, but at the same time, there's always an excuse. You look back in the day, you had to go to the library to look things up and stuff, but at the same time, if you have the passion and the drive to do something, you're gonna figure out a way to do it. It's just easier now.
And again, speaking as a millennial, it's one of those things that always kind of pisses me off when people talk about, like, millennials, like, in particular, being, like, lazy or unmotivated or anything like that. I'm like, I don't think you really get it. I mean, you know, we grew up through the era of, like, radical change. I mean, I remember, and again, like, to be fair, I am a little biased because I did kind of grow up with, like, you know, a father who was in the STEM field, and my mom, like, you know, she does, like, you know, like, pharmacy, all that kind of stuff. But it was one of those things, like, I remember back in the day, like, just to play a video game, you basically had to know how to program. Like, you had to, like, okay, these files need to go here, these need to go here. I need to make sure I set everything up properly. You know, I need to make sure, like, everything's where it needs to be. You know, it wasn't, like, actual programming, obviously. But, you know, there's a lot more to it as opposed to, you know, just going to, like, the Play Store and clicking install. And I feel like that's why, like, you know...
This is where I got to give a shout out to Zork. Oh my God!
Right?
You know, like, text-based games. So when I first got into technology, you know, obviously, my parents are both in childhood education, so you know, they were able to take care of us and give us what we needed, but we didn't have a lot of technology early on in life. I mean, it was expensive. It was so expensive back in the day. And so, you know, we finally got a computer when I was in... we got a good computer, a decent computer when I was in middle school, so I finally got to start playing. And that was really one of the first things I did was text-based programming. And making games, it got me so pumped, and being able to have the ability to do something like that. And I mean, for me, looking back in the day, you know, we have our N64 and we're like, oh my God, Zelda, Ocarina of Time, it looks so real, this is so fucking cool. And then you look back now and you're like, God damn, these polygons are fucking horrendous. But, you know, I love that I got to live through this, and I'm making my child relive this with me. She's a product of the 90s now. She's, I mean, currently watching the Pokemon series.
On that note, did you see that thing Nintendo put out about releasing the $60 Nintendo Entertainment System?
I hate that.
Oh, yeah? Why is that?
So... It's great. I mean, it's exposing these younger generations to what we got to grow up with. But nothing will beat having to blow into your fucking cartridge, fucking pump it up and down 6 different times, trying to get your NES to power up, and seeing that gray fucking screen, and pulling your hair out, and then not remembering where you put your fucking 80-character-long code for Metroid. So you have to start all the fuck over again.
But that's nostalgia talking, because you're giving a bunch of examples of things nobody wants to do anymore.
No, you're 100% right.
And that's my thing.
So like, true.
I'm excited to just have, like, an HDMI cable that I could plug into my TV, and I could play fucking Castlevania again. Like, fuck yes. Yes, sir.
True. No. I can't say I hate it. That's okay. Internet. I'm sorry, Internet. I'm going to issue my apology statement right now so I don't just get mobbed.
He's not that sorry.
I am sorry. Shut up, Matt. So, I'm sorry. It's a really cool thing. It's great to expose the younger generations to our era of gaming. And really, you know, for us, the Nintendo Entertainment System is really what set us up.
Yeah.
Atari. Like, I remember playing Pong with my dad, and because my dad was...
Arcades.
All about, you know, Atari and stuff, so super stoked about that kind of stuff. But Nintendo really was the Nintendo Entertainment Center and the Sega, and those were really what started the generation of gamers. that's really what created our generation's passion for something like this. So it is cool that they're bringing it back. I'm bummed because it's only going to have a set amount of games and nothing else will release onto it. That's why I build an emulator, throw it in an arcade system, and play all the stuff that we want.
Then, so, like, for me, like, as soon as you said that, I'm immediately thinking, like, oh, okay, how can I hack this thing to put more stuff on it?
But why do you need to hack that when you can just get a Raspberry Pi, set up an emulator, and just have the entire world of gaming for us?
Why not?
But that does... God damn it, Anthony, fuck you. I don't think that's fun. That's not fun to me. What's fun is taking a Raspberry Pi and creating an emulator. And I think that's really cool.
Then finish it.
Shut up, Matt. It's almost finished. It's functioning. We just got to get the arcade stuff. Okay, Internet, here it is. So, just so you know, me and Anthony have been working on... We actually bought an old arcade machine that was fucked up. We pulled out all the guts. We've installed a Raspberry Pi, and we're actually creating an arcade system with joysticks, buttons. We're building all that.
Yeah,
and it's going to emulate
really cool.
all
it's
the
got
old
like
games.
Like this really cool, like old school Nintendo kind of color scheme to it with like the gray, dark gray kind of stuff. It's really cool. We've been having a blast working on this.
We'll throw up some pictures on the Twitter and the Facebook so you guys can check it out. So it's been a really fun project. We are going to finish it. We've been a little lazy on it. Anthony's been working way too much, which is why I blame.
Yep.
Not the fact that I'm lazy.
Yeah, no, honestly, I've been super, super busy lately, which is an excuse. But no, like we're actually we're coming up into some free time here, so we should actually have that finished up pretty soon.
Yeah, we'll definitely throw that stuff up for you guys to check out. I mean, give us a shout out, let us know what you think, and if you think it's shitty and we should, kill ourselves, tell us. We're not going to do it, but everyone's opinion matters at some point, I guess.
Welcome to the internet.
So I'm going to go ahead and roll into a topic that is very near and dear to me. Obviously, when it comes to the Academy, there's a lot of controversy around the Film Academy, the TV Academy. But something that's really important to me and something that really stands out is I want to give a shout out to John Williams. I mean,
Absolutely.
That man, he has defined a generation of music, an entire generation of film through his music. And to finally see a composer be recognized through a Lifetime Achievement Award, it makes me so happy. And
tying back into the sci-fi thing, for anyone who doesn't know, he composed Star Wars, among many other things.
For anyone that doesn't know, are you kidding me? Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jaws, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The man has been in every big moment. I mean, he's been with Spielberg, he's been with Lucas, he's been with Christopher Columbus, he's been with... the man has done... Yeah, Christopher Columbus, that's his name. He directed the first 2 Harry Potters.
Okay.
So it's really, I know, it's really weird to think. I know.
You sailing over,
pioneered that movie franchise.
What is it? 1492 coming across the Atlantic,
the ocean view.
Okay, Chris Columbus, get out of here, get off my shit. Chris Columbus
Santa Maria
brought Harry Potter to the big screen. Okay, get out of here. But anyway, no, John Williams, the man is a musical genius. He is, and I don't want to take away from the other composers that are out there because there are endless. I mean, there's a huge list of some of the greatest composers of our times, and it's hard. I hate to compare them, but John Williams, he really defined a generation.
Well, yeah, and I mean, honestly, you hear the first couple notes of like Hedwig's theme, and you immediately recognize it. You hear the first couple notes of the Imperial March, and you recognize it. Like John Williams, like he just had that ability to really create a score that like carried like the emotion of the scene, but was also just memorable on its own right.
Yeah, and I mean, there's the biggest thing is
with or without context, they're all great scores.
Yeah, and we do have to look at the fact that Star Wars was a fucking huge commercial hit, and that really, the product has a lot to do with it in the film itself. And, you're not going to go wrong when you're working with Steven Spielberg on Schindler's List.
Well, the flip side of that, though, is, you're not going to work with Spielberg on Schindler's List unless you've already got some chops behind you.
Which is true. The important thing for us to realize is we have to look... one of the, I mean, you have to look at Elmer Bernstein. I mean, if you've seen The Magnificent Seven, the original, I mean,
which, by the way, you excited for the new one?
I can't wait. I am pretty
stoked.
stoked.
I haven't seen the old one, and I'm excited.
We do have to talk about, I mean, The Magnificent Seven, which is just it's a classic. Obviously, it's great. But he also did The Great Escape, and he even did Ghostbusters. I mean, come on, fucking Ghostbusters. It's amazing. So, I mean,
topical.
It is topical. But you have Elmer Bernstein, who's just amazing. You have to give a big shout out to him because he's done so many amazing things. Of course, everyone knows Danny Elfman. I mean, he did The Simpsons. He did the Batman opening theme.
Right.
He did,
well, like Danny Elfman,
Spider-Man movies, the old ones,
and he's also been like associated with Tim Burton. And
that's
honestly,
true.
Like,
yeah,
the Tim Burton scores have all been good. I mean, Danny Elfman's really good. Like, honestly, I think one of my favorite Danny Elfman scores is probably The Corpse Bride. Just because it has like that very kind of like
he's got a very
dark,
unique,
mellow
dark sound,
kind of like
and I mean,
melodic.
Even
sound.
obviously, John Williams has been around since the 70s and he's been doing amazing work. And you can even look at more recent stuff such as like Howard Shore, who did obviously Lord of the Rings, but even on top of that, he did Silence of the Lamb and Seven, which were both the music really held up. Those stories were. A lot of that was told through the music and creating that suspense. And, I mean, obviously you have some of the classic, like Bernard Herrmann, who obviously, you look at so much time with Alfred Hitchcock. And, I mean, you get to work with one of the greatest filmmakers of all
time. A piece of
time.
atmospheric music can go a very long way.
Oh,
very
absolutely.
much so. And, I mean,
there's that, it's always funny because there's that YouTube video that I love watching, and it's like just like an alligator walking through the swamp, essentially. And as he's walking, they change the music that's playing. And, it goes from, like, being, like, a horror film to, like, a quirky comedy to being, like, all sorts of different things.
And, I mean, I'm going to keep ranting on about all these guys, and even, again, something more modern. You look at Hans Zimmer, who's been, mainly working with Chris Nolan lately and doing things like The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, and he also worked on
he did
Gladiator.
Right?
Yeah, he did work on Inception as well.
Like, Interstellar was one of those movies that it was very bizarre. All in all, I would say I enjoyed it, but what I think was like the deciding factor for whether I actually liked it or not was the score. And the score for that was amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, so that's a more recent example. I think if you let's look at the past 50, 60 years in film. So we have a lot of guys that are still going strong. John Williams is going to keep going until he dies. The guy's a fucking genius. He's amazing. Yeah. But you look at, you can't rank a lot of the newer guys up there with him because their career is still early, even though they've done amazing things. But when it comes to the past 50 or 60 years, I would say it comes down to Morricone, who was the great of the spaghetti westerns in Italy. I mean, you can't beat that final duel when it comes to the good and the bad and the ugly. I mean, but even then, he worked on a lot of niche films. I mean, the spaghetti westerns of the day, they were really popular, but it was westerns being done in Italy. These Italian directors were shooting in Italy and Spain, and they were doing all these things, and they were great. Don't get me wrong, I love a great spaghetti western. But when it comes to the iconics of the last 60 years, John Williams has had more Academy Award nominations than like anyone out there. It's insane. And the man is he's brilliant.
I'm actually going to kind of change the subject a little bit because, you're talking about like the genres and all that and like how it ties in. Let's talk about video game music.
Should I flip on the light real quick?
No, yeah, I mean, video game music is definitely irrelevant because, and I think with video
I feel
games,
like a lot of those are newer composers.
Oh yeah, and there's no doubt about that.
And exactly, because like the prestige comes with doing like this big like A movie like
Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Having like that one massive like film like score that you do.
Franchise.
But then again, you listen to like the soundtrack from like Mass Effect.
I'm thinking
where it just like drives home like all the feels.
I do have to call out one thing. John Williams actually did a piece for Zelda for the big orchestra thing that they did nationwide.
Oh, yeah.
John Williams actually did some music for it. So
I actually have tickets to
again,
the next the Zelda orchestral tour thing that they're doing. I have tickets to that. I'm so excited.
That is cool.
Looking at this from a bigger hole, so obviously John Williams. Congratulations! Thank you to the Academy. I'm going to go ahead and give his acceptance speech. Thank you to the Academy for really recognizing one of the greats when it comes to music, because without the music, you lose so much motion. So let's just give a shout out, John Williams. Fucking,
Yeah,
you are
absolutely.
awesome.
This is the part of the podcast where Chris gushes over his favorite composer.
Well, exactly. Chris has just gone total fanboy.
I am.
Granted,
And I have
he
to
is-
say,
he's
you know,
justified. Like John Williams, I will not like say bad about that guy's his career. Just
and
in general.
it is. So awesome. I'm so glad he got recognized. One of the first composers to ever be recognized by a Lifetime Achievement Award. Well deserved, and it makes me so happy. So just kind of looping into the bigger picture of soundtracks and music and scores to anything. Yeah, when it comes to a video game, you have a unique perspective when it comes to the music, because in a film you're an observer, and the music is
in
there.
A video game, you are inside.
Exactly. So yeah, as in a film, you're the observer. So the music wants to create the empathy and the sympathy and really tie you into the narrative. When it comes to a game, it's about the hardest thing about a game is when you make a fantastic soundtrack, you go unrecognized because
I will
it
disagree
sucks
with that
you in.
because you think about names like Jake Kaufman.
No. I'm not saying that the
amazing
guys
video
aren't
game composer.
recognized, but when it comes to an amazing game
Now,
soundtrack,
hold on. Pause
it
real
keeps
quick.
you in the experience.
How many people out there actually know who Jake Kaufman is?
More than you'd think.
That's true. I don't want to argue that, but the biggest thing is when you do a great job creating a score for a video game, you don't the gamer on a certain level, it's there subconsciously,
Right.
But at a certain level, you don't even realize that that's there,
Unless, like, you're like explicitly
because
talking about it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, again, like, you'll talk about, like, Legend of Zelda and, like, like, how great Ocarina of Time was. But, like, everybody will kind of go on about, like, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, any of the other, like, really good Zelda games. But, you don't really talk about the music too much unless you're talking about the music.
Yeah, and that's kind of what
As
I'm getting
opposed to
to
who
is
made it.
to make an amazing game score, you want to create the atmosphere without interrupting the experience.
Right.
And that's such a difficult thing to do. I mean,
It
you have to make something that creates the atmosphere and sucks you. I mean, look at games like Dead Space or Dark Souls or Bloodborne. Those games, the music is
To
just...
be fair, I can name the composer for Dead Space, Jason Graves.
Shut the fuck up. No, I'm kidding. No, that's great. It's fantastic that, those guys do deserve recognition because it is almost a thankless job as opposed to when it comes to... I
Right.
mean, even look at the game, like when you... Okay,
Well,
here's a super controversial thing. Video Game Awards, VGAs, all that stuff. Super controversial. But if you look at it, none of them really recognize the guys that are doing these amazing scores. Whereas when it comes to the Academy, you have soundtracks, best original score,
Right.
best original song. So, and I think that will develop as video games are taken more and more
that's the thing,
seriously
like,
in the
all that
artistic
is, like,
community.
it's still, like, realistically, video games are still a new medium. I mean,
They are.
I can't remember exactly what it was, like, what year it was. But, I mean, the first video game was, built in, like, MIT labs and, like, it was like
70s something?
No, it was, like, the 50s or 60s.
Okay.
It was, like, basically, like, a... like very, very early version of Asteroids, essentially, from what I understand. But yeah, no, I mean, so, and then you have films that realistically go back to like
early 1900s.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, like video games are still a very new medium, and they're just now starting to become like like mainstream popular.
Well, and the big thing with games, I mean, you look at back in the day, we were playing a game about a plumber that was jumping on top of little mushrooms. And so when it came to narrative, you did have some narrative games. You have the original Final Fantasies and stuff like that.
Right.
But games are finally entering a realm where they are true artistic forms that are really coming out. And there's so many amazing things about games now. And
Right.
what's
And
really
now,
great...
So I've got to ask, because you're a film guy, but I've got to say honestly, I'm really starting to feel that video games are almost a better medium for storytelling than film.
I'd say they are because you can participate in the story. Like,
Here's
you look
the-
at a horror movie, you're screaming at the TV like, "Don't go that way! Don't go that way!" If you're in a horror game, you can actively choose like, "I'm not going to go down that hallway," or
So here's
I'm gonna
the thing.
turn off the game here.
It's
if I'm
important.
scared."
I think it's very, very important not to discount the importance of film or any other
Well, no,
art
and
form.
that's not what I'm
So
saying,
here it
yeah.
is. So here's kind of from my perspective. I am an avid gamer. I grew up with games. I love them. I'm a filmmaker. The two do two completely different things.
Right.
So I think as a storytelling medium, there's things you can do in games that you can't do in film. I agree. You can, because you are actively participating. But however, it's the same. It goes back to the argument of books versus film. every single artistic medium, whether it's a painting on the wall, it's a piece of music, it's a book, it's a film, they all have different things that they can do better than other mediums. And that's why they're all still entertainment. Right. So I hate to say that it's a better medium, but I think that it does do things better. We do have to acknowledge that.
Okay, and that's a fair point.
So
I will give you that, because that's a very good argument, because, for film, you can literally just kind of like show up, get like 2 hours of this really good story. Just kind of be like, a observer of this, story. Whereas in video games, especially like, a lot of the ones I enjoy, which are if you just do the story, are these like, 40, 50 hour arcs of, just like, gameplay, there's a different purpose for each, and I can see that, and that makes a lot of sense.
One thing you have to look at, so obviously Anthony and I, we both are big Warcraft fans, and but however, a lot of people don't want to grind and play a game for 200 hours to get a fucking story.
Only 200?
Well, yeah, no, I'm yeah,
and that's the demographic where I come in.
But I think it's important to realize that video games can tell amazing in-depth stories that involve you. However, films can tell these amazing stories end to end, suck you in, and it's something that's a lot less time consuming.
And that's very true.
So that's important to realize.
And I gotta concede, because there are some video games like the story is just garbage, and it's just the way
Duke
it's designed.
Nukem Forever. I'm
right,
looking
exactly.
At you.
But then and then on the flip side of that, you have movies like Memento, which, like, Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, it's so hard. And like I said, as an avid gamer and a filmmaker, I understand the need for both mediums as well as, and I don't want to discount books. I love books, and there's things you can't.
Oh yeah, no, I'm an avid reader.
When it comes to books, neither video games nor film can really ever capture that internal monologue. Because when you do it in a game, someone's speaking it, and the way that they act it and they speak it really is what presents it. But when it comes to a book, you come to understand the motivations, and you fall in love or fall in hate with these characters. Right. And so, just through your mind, there's so many things that your imagination can do that books can. Books are the only medium that can do it.
Yeah,
every medium has a place.
And again, caution. We're getting into Game of Thrones territory.
This is a spoiler alert. Repeat, this is a spoiler alert.
Yeah, so, completely caught up with the show and everything. I freaking love the show. It's amazing. But I've started reading the books. And, so I'm about, 2/3 of the way through of, Game of Thrones, the first book.
It's a different experience.
And it's a very different experience because, you actually hear, the thought process behind what, some of the characters are doing.
Give me Lady Stoneheart. God damn it.
Yeah,
David Benioff, give me Lady Stoneheart. Okay, I'm off my rant.
I'd argue that Eddard Stark, in particular, is very much more fleshed out in book form.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because
focus more on
to be fair,
than
from
on things going on in other parts of the world.
Right, and that's the thing, so in the TV show, they did a good job of really catching the highlights of the character.
Yeah, and
then you go through the book and you're like, okay, there's a lot more going on under the surface here.
Well, and you look at so we're looking at the producers came out and said 72 episodes, 72 hours of Game of Thrones is what we're getting. So that's come out. They talked about it, 7 episodes next season. So you look at that and you basically equate 1 minute of screen time to 1 page inside of a screenplay.
Right.
So you're looking at a lot. So you're looking at hundreds of pages for the show that is already well beyond the books at this point.
Right.
Where if you look at the books, you're looking at thousands of pages
per book.
Again, yeah. So you're looking at thousands of pages versus hundreds of pages. So there is a very big difference between the two. And filmmaking, a good filmmaker understands show, don't tell. You don't go through and just talk about exposition.
Right.
And that's why they were so dead set against doing flashbacks until some of the stuff with Bran. But,
right. And even then, they did a good job with it because it made sense with the story at the time with Bran,
100%.
training to become the next Three-Eyed Raven.
But that's where the hardest thing is. George R.R. Martin, he is so deep into his characters, and there's so many motivations that just can't be shown. And in Game of Thrones, they do a great job of not just puking exposition all over the place.
World.
Yeah, so they do a great job of not puking exposition all over the place, whereas the books are able to really dig into the exposition and dig into a lot of these things that the TV show has not even been able to scratch the surface of.
Right.
So again, that just
not even appear.
Yeah, and that's where it all comes back to. Your medium is going to really establish what you can do. That's really important to understand.
Yeah.
Which, and like, that was honestly, so part of the reason I decided to wait on reading the books was I got into the show like just after the end of the first season, I think. And it was really cool. Like, you know, you get left with like these cliffhangers, like you don't know what's going to happen, and I really appreciated that coming from like a TV show. Like it, like just the way the way it worked just felt really good. Like, you know, and then on top of it, you had like the social aspect, especially with something like Game of Thrones, where you know, like you have something like the Red Wedding that happens, and like, you know, collectively, like everybody freaks out, and then you have Hold the Door. And again, everybody freaks out.
And I gotta say, it was a wonderful part of the story, and they did a great job of telling it. But I swear to God, if someone fucking says Hodor, hold the door again, I'm going to snap someone's fucking neck.
But yeah, no. So like, take the spoiler warning seriously. We apologize here at Duly Nerded.
To be fair, at this point, you have had like 3 months to catch up to that particular reference.
Sure.
But, you know, everything aside, yeah, I think it's very important, and again, kind of looping back into our overall topic, it's very important to understand every medium has a positive, and every art form has the ability to do something that others can't. So that's, again, I mean, you go back to the like early 1900s, 1800s, even back to like 1600s, and everyone said, oh, reading's going to rot your mind. It's so bad for you. And then we get to TV, and oh, watching TV is going to rot. I mean, and now, oh, the internet's going to ruin you as a person. So it's always up and coming.
It's all about the devil, or like D&D is all about the devil.
So it's important to realize that we have so many things at our disposal.
The first thing that jumped to my head, was the Water Boy.
But yeah, so I just want to give a shout out again. I love every art form, every medium for storytelling really has the ability to do something special, and I love that video games are finally getting that recognition. That's so awesome. You know, it's amazing to see something that has developed so much and become
to varying degrees.
Exactly,
I have sour taste in my mouth from the VGX still.
Well, but like on that note of like, you know, like video games evolving and changing and all that, I know Matt wanted to talk about Pokemon Go.
Oh my God! Like, can we please talk about? I need some more fucking Ghastlies. Jesus Christ! I just want my Gengar.
That thing
please.
That I'm sure everyone in probably the world by now, since it just dropped in Japan recently, is
poor Spain all by themselves.
Tired of hearing about Pokemon Go, the new app where you can walk around outside using Google Maps, I believe.
Well, yeah, Niantic basically uses like the Google Maps API.
A lot of people don't realize Niantic was a startup within Google and then went off on their own, so they have a lot of that information.
Relatively small up until Pokemon Go came out, and then they just blew up.
Well, and actually, I read something interesting earlier today.
Huge overnight.
Basically the quote unquote founder, because it was founded through Google. The original founder of the company was a Google Maps, basically software engineer.
Yep.
And he was the one that they did he was the one that helped out with that Google April Fool's joke where they did the Pokemon in Google Maps,
which is glorious. That's what led to
this. And then that was hey. Maybe this is an actual thing.
What I do have to say, okay,
so I want this.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we were all avid Pokemon players as kids.
Oh yeah,
I still am.
Red version for the win.
Get out of here! I was all blue. So we all played the games as kids. I mean, I had both Red and Blue. Poured hundreds and hundreds of hours into it. Spent many hours standing by the fucking truck trying to get Mew, as we all did. Obviously, back in the glory days before the internet could tell you were a fucking idiot. No, but so I think Pokemon Go is getting a lot of hate right now, and it's unjustified.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's getting a lot of hate. I'd say it's kind of divided people into two camps. You have the people that just don't really get it, and then the people that love it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of people that are being really hateful about it, and
it depends on the thing. I can see both sides of the thing. We all play it here. We all love Pokemon.
But
then you get the people who will be dumb about it. Like, they'll get in other people's way. Like, they'll just kind of...
Okay, so I want to look at this from
paying attention to where they're walking, looking at their phones.
Yeah, but if we got to look at this from a bigger perspective. So, like...
Also, the app, just
I'm okay.
It's very simple.
Yeah, I'm okay with people not getting it and not caring about it. That's okay. Yeah. You don't have to like Pokemon. You don't have to like the idea of Pokemon Go. Where I have an issue is people, like... so, growing up, we got teased endlessly for loving comics and video games, and you see these people.
When being a geek was not okay.
Yeah, and you see these people that are starting to hate on this game, Pokemon Go, and I think it's ridiculous because one, it's something that we love and it's something that we grew up with, but two, it is really opening up a lot of people to go out and socialize and meet with people.
On that note, one of the things I've really enjoyed about this whole Pokemon Go, like just whatever it has been, like, you know, I've been seeing posts about like autistic. Yeah, exactly. I've seen posts about like children with autism that have been like leaving the house and interacting with other people.
Yeah,
I mean, like exactly. Like, I mean, it's one of those things that's like.
But at the same time, it does bad, and people tend to focus on the bad.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we're in like where the media perpetuates the ridiculousness.
And honestly, I can see where a lot of the hate comes from. Like, it's a kind of trend thing. Like, any big fan base will get this. A few months ago, it was Undertale. Like, you get the very vocal Undertale fanatics and all the people on the internet who fucking hate them because they won't shut up. And you get these two very different, like, very.
But I feel like this
opinions.
is a bigger thing.
It happened with Call of Duty as well. It happened with Halo. It's any big fan base for any.
I get it, and I get that there's always going to be the haters, but this is a bigger issue, and it's the fact that people are being nasty to people that are enjoying something, and not only are they enjoying it, but it's actually improving their lives. They're getting out, they're going out and exercising, they're having a great time, they're building a great community. People are really having a great time with this, and there's literally no reason. The fact that there's so many posts, people are posting all these things saying, oh, you can play Pokemon Go, but you don't have a job. But that's the thing, is the majority of people that are playing Pokemon Go are successful people, and we've gone on to do great things.
Oh, you could play fantasy football, but you don't have a job?
Yeah, like, don't hate on people because they love something, and don't hate on people because they enjoy something. It's important to realize that this is a really great thing, and it's building a really great community, and there's a lot of fantastic things that are coming out of this. And if you don't get it and you don't like it, that's okay. You don't have to like it. But don't be an asshole.
Right.
All right? Just don't be an asshole.
Life advice for blank. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah. Like, you don't have to like everything. You don't have to agree on everything. But don't be a fucking douchebag. Sorry, rant over. Just don't be a douchebag. You don't have to like everything that people like. You don't have to agree with it. But there's no reason to hate on people and be a douchebag about it.
Unless you're Team Mystic. Fuck you.
Oh, there's the turf war. Oh, we just lost.
In all seriousness, though, in all seriousness, obviously that's a joke.
And on that note, I just got a text from one of our friends asking if we were going to play Pokemon again. Just now. That timing is fantastic.
But no, it's great. I mean, again, I think that anything that promotes a good community and gets people involved and gets people doing stuff, I think it's great. And whether you're involved in fantasy football or you're involved in Pokemon Go or you're involved in World of Warcraft, you're building a community and you're being a better person, and you're just, that's the thing. There's always going to be trolls and assholes out there.
Right.
The great thing is that, you know, I look back to when I was a kid and I played sports because I enjoyed them and I wanted to, you know, fit in, but I loved comics. I loved games. And I was endlessly teased about it. I mean, we all understand that. But what's so wonderful is you can see, you know, you look at things like San Diego Comic-Con or even for us locally, Denver Comic-Con, and you get to see this group of people that were endlessly teased and didn't really get to, you know, show their love for things that are getting to get together and celebrate these wonderful things.
Like,
and that's how I see Pokemon Go.
Generation of people who weren't allowed to be geeks when we were kids.
Yeah, and
like, nowadays it's much more widely accepted. Sometimes even to the point of like considering it like almost a fashion culture, I've noticed, which is kind of weird to me.
Yeah, but it's great.
It is. I mean, honestly, and here's the thing: I'm perfectly okay with it being a fashion culture because, like, the messages you learn.
It's a little bizarre to me.
Well, and yeah, I can definitely see that. But like the messages you learn from, like, you know, good games or good movies or good comics, you know, it's always about, like, you know,
acceptance, I would say.
Yeah, honestly, yeah,
like the bigger picture.
Yeah, honestly, like you get these like great stories that just make you think, and ultimately that's what's important.
Yeah, and I'm just so happy to live in a time that, you know, I can share the things that I love with my kid. And Batman. So I love that I can share things with my kid, and I don't have to be concerned that she's going to get teased about it. Because, you know, yeah, there's a lot of people that are mad that being a geek or a nerd is mainstream, but for me, that's a win for us.
Actually, on that note, can we talk about how angry people got that Heroes of the Storm was on ESPN?
Oh, I know. So yeah, we'll circle back around to that in a second. But I just love that we live in a world now that's more accepting that you can love the things that you love and you can do these things that you enjoy, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful that people are becoming more accepting.
I would enjoy it more if Pokemon Go would give me my motherfucking Sandshrew. I've been looking for so long.
But yeah, I love that we're finally living in a world that we're so connected that we know there's people like us out there. You know, as a kid, it was me and 3 friends. We played D&D, we played Magic, we played Pokemon, and we thought we were the only ones that did that, and we were endlessly picked on. But now we're all so connected. We know that we're out there, and we're able to share that with other people, and that's wonderful. That's super awesome.
It is.
So anyways, let's circle around. Let's talk about esports. I'm a huge esports fan. I mean, obviously, LCS is coming to a close for regular season. We're getting ready for playoffs and then Worlds.
League of Legends, for anyone not in the know.
League of Legends, yes. And we also have Heroes of the Storm and stuff. And ESPN actually has an entire esports section now, which is super awesome.
Right.
Even though it needs some work, I'm giving them a lot of props. That's a big jump for them to take.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's a risk for them because, again, like I said, people got pissed.
Yeah, they came under fire real fast.
Yeah, it's very much a risk, but I think they're realizing it's becoming a big thing. And esports is no longer a group of guys getting together to set up a CS, a Counter-Strike.
Yeah, like LAN
tournament, LAN party. Now it's becoming a serious thing. And even in the U.S., there's been bills passed that, people that play professional esports are considered as athletes.
Exactly. They're like the Korean, like some of the Korean teams have been able to get sports visas to come to the U.S. and play.
And it's great. That makes me so happy because when you look at sports in general, again, I have a sports background. I played hockey, I played baseball, and I played football. I have a sports background. But what's great is when you're out on the football field, you're in a huddle, your coach is always talking about the mental aspect of the game.
Right.
There's so much of the mental aspect.
Well, that's the thing. So I did wrestling and I did soccer and I did all that back in the day. And again, that was the thing. Like, it was never like you never won, solely on the field.
Yeah.
You won in preparation, you won in practice, and you won through, like, basically thinking ahead of your opponent.
Exactly.
There's a lot more mental aspect to sports than a lot of people recognize because they just see a bunch of buff dudes throwing a ball around on the TV.
Yeah, and that's what's great is esports are the same thing. It's a team sport. It requires strategy, it requires preparation, and it requires a ton of mental fortitude.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I wrote, like, a whole long article about, like, the strategy that is involved in video games.
Yeah,
and I think it's one of those things that, like, if you can consider, like, stuff like, golf or chess or any of that a sport, esports absolutely deserves to be up there.
Friggin' shuffleboard.
And I don't want to take away from golf or any
No, and
sports.
that wasn't my intention.
No, I totally get you. I think it's important to realize that, like, people give golf shit all the time. People give soccer shit, and soccer is a fucking world of fucking hurt when you play it and you don't understand the amount of endurance that is required for that. But it's important to realize that there's so many sports out there that people pick on and tease, and esports is coming into that as well. As it's becoming mainstream, as it's really starting to blow up, people are going to tease it just like they tease golf, they tease soccer. It's going to be there. It's going to exist. But what's great is it is getting the exposure that I think it deserves. I think that, it's really grown.
So, like, let's break it down. So, you brought up the LCS. Like League of Legends, and I don't know how many of our listeners are going to have played League of Legends, but, there's a lot of, like, you have to make, like, split-second decisions. You have to, you have to be thinking ahead, like, okay, when do we want to start pushing this lane? When do we want to start,
When's a good time for Dragon?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of decision-making.
When do we decide to finally kill that Cloud Drake because nobody wants the buff?
Yeah, like, it's one of those
Cloud
things.
Drake has the best buff because you get a 1 in 4 chance of a better dragon spawning.
And see, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. So, and this is just 3 people. You have 5 people on a team. You need to make decisions. You need to work as a team. And it's one of those things that really, it trains your brain. It ultimately does. I mean, there's even a study recently that, Granted, this was more specific to Mario Kart, but they showed that people that were really good at Mario Kart tended to be better drivers because it trained your brain the same way that driving a car does, making split-second decisions, recognizing hazards before they arrive, stuff like that. So, I mean,
Is this why you're so bad at Mario Karting?
Probably.
Is that why everyone screams that, oh my god, Anthony's going to kill us on the drive to Denver, oh my god.
How telling that he places 8th consecutively.
At least he's starting to get into the single digits instead of the double-digit placings.
To be fair, there are only 3 double-digit placements in Mario Kart.
To be fair, I am not good at Mario Kart. The flip side of that, I get fucked a lot.
It's all about them blue shells.
Right? There have been so many races I'll be in like first or second place until third lap, and then, now I'm in 13th.
I think it's generous saying you're in first or second place. I would say like 4th or 7th place would be more accurate for you.
Yeah, usually Chris and I are like in the top 3.
Oh yeah, we
and then we
go
watch
back and
Anthony
forth.
play the last lap while ours going on.
I know we put it on auto. We go get drinks. We grab some snacks. We come back and we get to see Anthony cross the finish line. Maybe, yeah. If his controller froze up. Oh my god, it's not working.
That actually genuinely happened to me once, I remember.
Oh, yeah, so
I feel like it's genuine. It genuinely happened to Matt. It wasn't salt at all.
Yeah, if we're talking controller Johns.
The one time Matt wasn't doing well, it was the controller,
right,
100%.
Yeah.
But Anthony's just a baddie, so. Oh, well, this has been a great. I want to thank you guys, listening into episode 0 and listening to the BS that we wanted to talk about and just some of the things we're passionate about and things we love. And, if you guys enjoy our podcast, we're going to definitely have more coming out, and we're really excited to kind of share our thoughts on pop culture and what's happening today. And I do want to give a shout out again, thanks to Anthony and Matt for joining me on this insane journey that we're starting together.
Of course.
It's very exciting. It's a lot the internet's a scary place to put yourself out there. It's, you can get fucked hard.
Just don't feed the trolls.
Yeah.
But again, I want to give
It's difficult to not do.
give a big shout out to my co-hosts and really leading into this conversation. I do want to go ahead and throw out there, if you want to follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Duly Nerded, you can also check out our website, www.duly-nerded.com,
where you can read such articles as the one Anthony posted about strategy.
Yeah, Anthony's got a great strategy-based thing, and we'll all be publishing blogs. We're also going to be putting up the podcasts on there. We'll be adding some features throughout this journey. We're going to really...
Again, like we mentioned, this is still very new, so as we grow, we'll be adding more, especially if, you guys want anything in particular, just let us know and we can make sure we try and include that.
Yeah, we definitely...
Internet.
It's important. Please be gentle. Use some lube. No, we want to make sure that we really create a community around this, because for us, it's about sharing our passion, but not only above that, we want to hear from you guys, and, shoot us a question on Twitter or Facebook. We want to know what you guys think about our opinions. I mean, if you think that John Williams doesn't deserve to get the honors that he's gotten, or if you think
we'll block your IP,
or if you think the Pokemon Go is stupid, let us know. We want to hear what you have to say, and we want to make sure we're building our show around things that people are interested in, and that we have somewhat kind of conversation to talk about. So again, at Duly Nerded on Facebook and Twitter, www.duly-nerded.com. Check us out. Like I said, more blogs to come, and thank you guys for listening to episode 0.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.